Well,
I
are we rolling?
we are rolling. It says live video is starting.
I mean, it says that. I don't know. We'll see.
We are live.
Okay, okay.
After and of course it started after I took off my helmet, so now I have to put my helmet back on so everybody can see it. So hi everybody. Hang on one second because I had a really cool dramatic intro planned for this. Um, just pretend you're not watching yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Oh, I can't have my glasses on with it either.
there we go.
Wow, it's the Eternal Ranger!
Yo. I mean, classically, the Power Ranger actors like could not breathe or could like barely breathe, couldn't talk. Like it's very a close helmet.
Yeah, they are. That's I had so much trouble making this
Mm-hmm.
because I like had to like essentially mold it to my face. But hi everybody, welcome to the Eternal Rangers bonus stream with Jonathan.
Howdy, gang.
We're so excited to have you here. And yes, sorry, the helmet really it messes with my brain. Um it's heavy too. Like
Yeah.
I don't
I
know what they made them with in the show, but
Yeah, I mean,
dang.
I think there was various plastics they used in the show, but like, I think it's kind of this interesting element of like tokusatsu. Like, they're very much built to look really as good as possible, right? And like proportionally, the classic tokusatsu helmet like is much closer, like is so tight because they don't want the head to look too big. Like if you look at like for example Boba Fett, all Boba Fett art shrinks his head because he's actually wearing a real helmet that's like pretty big. So like when you look at the actor in the outfit, like he looks kind of big headed, whereas like all comic art they like shrink it so that his shoulders look broader and that he looks proportionally more
Yeah.
heroic. And for the Ranger suits, they just super sacrifice the comfort of the actors. Anyway, uh, hi
That's a great
everybody.
fact to start this stream with, though. I love that. And it's not a problem that we have in Heroes of the Grid at all,
Mm,
because they're minis.
yep, thank goodness. Yeah. So for folks who don't know what's going on right now, or why, like this is a stream where I am drawing. I am actually an illustrator sometimes, and I've never actually done any art for Heroes of the Grid. I have served as basically the art director the whole time. But for the Eternal Ranger, who's going to be kind of our example ranger in the build your own ranger structure, it was sort of I pitched this idea. They decided to like let me do like some sketch doodles of the card art as though these are like my own notes of my own ideas. I've occasionally done like light doodles for the artist to be like, hey, here's kind of what I'm picturing for this character or for this action moment. And so yeah, I'll be kind of doing just some doodles while we stream and talk and chat about the upcoming expansion and talk about like everything we've been through.
Yeah, let's start with the Eternal Ranger themselves,
Yeah.
because we've dropped a lot of hints about them, but we have not like explicitly addressed who they are or why they're the center of all of the Eternal Rangers like art and things. So, do you
Hmm.
want to talk about maybe how they came into like existence and what they're supposed to represent and all of that?
Yeah, I mean, so I think for a long time people were like positing like, oh, is Renegade gonna get their own Ranger design, right? Like, is in the
Mhm.
same way that like the comics kind of had their own concept for Rangers. And I think we sort of weren't kind of sure what to do for it, like whether we would or what have you. And eventually, we kind of did decide that like we wanted to give it a shot at least for this big finale, especially since we wanted to emphasize sort of a passing of the torch to the community.
Yeah.
And like as Renegade won't be doing more expansion content for the game after this, we wanted to send this like bit of a love letter to the community as well as like sending them off with something cool. And the Eternal Ranger is meant to represent that like undying, continuous fan base motion. And yeah, we were kind of really excited to get to do this concept. Their design was made by Dan Mora, who has been with us since the beginning. The illustrator for the core box, like the original cover for Heroes of the Grid, which we all love. Um, and yeah, like we kind of want them to be they're in some ways they are a generic Power Ranger, but they're meant to
Mhm.
represent the a hero who spans the morphin grid and can meet all of the others and do whatever you kind of need them to do. I will be we could probably spoil a few of them here because like I have of course made a kit for this ranger that will be available like as part of this, it will be explicated in the journal as I talk about how ranger kits are designed, and what kind of abilities and actions go into them. I can bring up on the second screen the secret stats that like no one is that I mean, we're not showing anybody, but I could probably spoil at least some of the abilities and some of the mechanics we're using. There's a couple of Easter eggs. Like I've been, I'm a big fan of Power Rangers the whole time, so this is something of a final love letter to the series and the kind of things that I enjoy. And having those mechanics be representative of this character's role of being kind of this very modular, very fluid. We have this kind of prismatic, opalescent aesthetic to the character that I'm very fond of.
Yeah.
Like it was one of those like, oh, Power Rangers are generally identified by a color, but this one is kind of, I think originally it was like, oh, is the Renegade Ranger just going to be blue like the Renegade logo? Are they just going to have a big R? Like we didn't want it to be too just like, hey, this is a Renegade Games character. Like I don't know, we didn't want it to look like Pepsi Man, right?
Right.
As much
Well,
as
yeah,
I
and
love Pepsi Man, let's make this
as
clear.
much as we all love Pepsi Man, yeah, and I mean like that was a lot of fun to do with this was I don't even know if it's showing up very well on stream, but like I did go and cut up like a holographic wrapping to get this like really cool rainbow effect, which looks really good in person, I promise.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
the
so
Caprica
that's
stuff. Like this was like not, this is one of the ones that's also like, oh, I do not envy the painters to have to try and pull this off.
thankfully they make some like really good like special effects mini paints. I collect those despite the fact that I paint maybe like once a month. But I love the like holographic and special effects mini paints. So
Mm,
I think those will get a good boost.
yeah. I mean,
Pepsi
when it
Matters.
comes to mini painting, are you like the kind of like for me, it's like there's a lot of aspirational elements to things. Like I have a bunch of like, I have Bandai Gundam model kit like, you know, kits that I've had for years that like one day I'll have the free time to sit down and build this thing. Like I feel like that's that's as much a part of the hobby as actually playing things. You know.
Oh yeah, the aspirations or because yeah, we've got a lot of aspirational mini painting also happening here. I It's the reason that I my Heroes of the Grid stuff is still in its box because I'm like I don't want to play until I like can paint everything just so. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
know when I'm going to have time for that.
Yep.
The
Definitely
painters in the
gonna have.
chat are accepting the challenge of making the holographic Eternal Ranger, so I'm really excited to see those when people put them out.
Yeah, like honestly, it's been a big thing of like kind of trying to make sure that the character suits like what we want for the suits what we're looking for when it comes to the character models and like making them painter friendly. A couple of the models, like if their arm is like really close to their chest or like whatever, you kind of it's really hard to get a brush around that. And we're trying
Mhm.
to like minimize that kind of difficulty as much as possible, which does restrict some of the cool poses we can do. But we've done our best. Yeah, I think originally I wanted the Eternal Ranger to have like a big billowy cloak, but I think we ended up not going with that.
Yeah, they're kind of a really big thing when you have the cloaks because I remember when we dropped oh chat you're gonna have to help me remember whose preview it was, but everybody went nuts about the cloak
Yeah,
and
I mean Mystic Force has a bunch of capes, which was like,
yeah, it was definitely one of the Mystic Force ones, and people thought that I think it was Justin maybe that he was holding a book instead of his cloak in his hand.
yeah,
But yeah, I
yeah,
mean the Eternal Ranger is I mean one I love that they're like when you are talking about the Eternal Ranger as a concept we use they them pronouns because they are meant to be anybody and everybody who like wants to play Heroes of the Grin, who wants to make
Mm-hmm.
their own ranger. And I think that that's really neat and cool. And again, I love a shiny object.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. Yeah, like I think we worked hard. We wanted the character to have kind of a bit of an androgynous build. Although, like honestly, I'm considering like in kind of the sketches we could do different body types and different like just have the Eternal Ranger have a really different shapes as though possibly multiple people have taken up the mantle, right? Like
Mhm.
we can add whatever conceptual story beats we put in. Notably, similar to how the RPG, right? You make your own rangers, you create your own stories. We wanted this to be kind of a prototypical example of that kind of influence. Honestly, one of the first original characters I ever made as a child was absolutely just a Power Ranger knockoff. It was like I was just when I was first learning to draw. Obviously, like you learn to draw
Mhm.
Power Rangers because then you don't have to draw a head. You just draw a helmet with like put a
You just
dinosaur
draw a
face
helmet,
on it.
yeah.
But yeah, when I was a little kid, like I think I made up a superhero that like I think I called him Ultraman, not knowing that was a different Tokusatsu hero at the time. But yeah, like oh, man, nostalgia.
That's so funny because I remember one of my first like original characters also as a child was a space Power Ranger. I wanted her to have like a little skirt.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted her to be dressed like all in silver, like the classic spacesuits.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad that everybody's like the first thing I'm gonna make Power Ranger.
Yeah. I mean, it's might be showing our age. Like I think it was definitely a thing for our time of like
Oh
you
yeah.
know, like I completely missed kind of the boat on Transformers a bit until much later in my life. So like Power Rangers was really my jam as a kid.
I'm trying to. Yeah, my brother was really into Transformers, but we also because I know they're like everybody thinks of like the original like 80s and early 90s stuff. I wasn't born until the late 90s, but we had a lot of like older like tapes and things like that from like our older cousins and things, and we would watch those just on repeat. So my brother got really into Transformers, and he loves like our Transformers game. So I was like, come play Power Rangers with me. It'll be just like when we were kids.
Mm-hmm.
And we were running around and playing Power Rangers.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, I do love that the Spectrum 20 RPG system is has that kind of playground feeling of like, hey, do you want to play Transformers with My Little Pony and GI Joe?
Yeah.
Go crazy. But yeah, like man, love that. Love that. We're all just playing with toys these days.
I love to play toys.
Yeah, you know.
Uh so we are already getting a couple of questions. I don't know how many of these we're like allowed to answer. Uh
Scott's not here, so shh. Yeah.
don't just wait. But the first one is, and I think we are allowed to talk about this one. What are the 10 extra Ranger combat cards in the box
Ooh,
for?
okay,
Eternal
right,
Ranger, or will they be alt cards?
right, yeah, okay. So, those extra 10 cards were sort of. Some of you may have noticed when we added Dino Fury, there was this very obvious mechanical space that I laid out for us to let them, because the Dino Fury Rangers have this cool modular power system where they can use these different Dino Fury powers that there were these neutral cards in Izzy's deck when we did the Dino Fury Ranger. The idea was that in the future we would add new Dino Fury Rangers, and they would each come with new cards that can be swapped interchangeably among the other Dino Fury Rangers. Unfortunately, that is just not in the cards at the moment. But I still had a set of Dino Fury cards that sort of are representative of various other Dino Fury Rangers, and so there are going to be 10 Dino keys that give you various funny powers with cool illustrations of those abilities, and so those are those 10 extra combat cards, which is like a little weird. Like they're for this other, they're basically an expansion for this other ranger, and they kind of have this weird neutral design, and they utilize a mechanic specific to a ranger in a previous expansion, which we generally try to avoid. But whatever. I pushed for like, hey, kind of part of Izzy's flavor was meant to include this kind of modular, fun customization element, which we've like pushed various ways through like the Orion's different legendary ranger mechanics and stuff. But like, I wanted to do a little more for Dino Fury there, and that is what those cards are from. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have been sitting on those. I was gonna drop them in a preview for you guys at some point, and then I realized that I could just have Jonathan do it. So
I mean, do we have the cards? Like, we have like examples of them?
I'm pretty sure I have them in the Dropbox somewhere. So I'll go take a look, and
Yeah,
then
good.
if I do have them, and if I'm allowed to show them, I'll put them in the group and like the
Yeah,
Discord and everywhere else. I've been dropping previews, probably Tuesday, because
sure.
today is all about this stream.
Yep, yep. Fair enough, fair
Uh,
enough. All right, so yeah, cool. Well, people now know what those
yeah.
were. I'm not actually bad at math. I remember when that first, like, people were like, "Hey, what are the extra 10 cards?" I'm like, "Wait, do we have? Did wait? What was that?" And then I was like, "Oh, right, yeah, okay." This thing that I did, because like the thing is, you got to understand, a lot of these cards, a lot of this content was developed months, sometimes some of them over a year ago, and
Mhm.
we're putting them all together, we're getting them all there, and we're getting art done, we're getting playtesting done. I often don't have a great sense of what's in any given expansion. uh,
So I mean, and that's part of like production is just like you start a game and you work on it for so long,
mhm,
and then it's out of your hands.
yeah, it is up to the community. uh, and yeah, like it is. Yeah, so that's like kind of a big thing of like I am I've told this anecdote before, but so back when I worked on Star Wars Imperial Assault, which was like my first kind of big major game release, I that game had a competitive mode, and they're like, "Oh, hey, you should be a judge for the tournament that at Worlds." And I was like, "Oh, cool, yeah, I'm the designer, obviously, like I should know the rules of this game." Turns out I was the absolute worst person to pick for that, because when someone was like, "Oh, hey, how does large figure movement work?" I was like, "Oh, shoot. We had it working 6 different ways during development. What did we decide on?" And and I had to look everything up because I didn't know, I couldn't necessarily remember exactly which version was the final version that went to print for a lot of these mechanics. Whereas the other judges and the other people who'd been playing since launch, they just had that rulebook. They had one version of the game that they knew, and so they were much quicker at answering these kinds of questions. So like, yeah, often it's funny when people like ask me a rules question or like try and ask me like, "Oh, hey, what did this character do?" I'm like, "Well, I can tell you what they did, 3 months or into their development, or like I can tell you what I originally wanted them to do."
But
But
whether
yeah.
or not they stuck with it, I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah.
We've got a lot of really good questions. But this one, you I think specifically made a comment about in the Facebook group, so I'm gonna grab Alex's question. Were you able to sneak in a Megazord card for the White Tiger Dragonzord from the comics?
Well, you know, I work very hard, and I am super good at my job. So, totally. Yeah. No, no, yeah, we actually were able to. I think one of the things that we realized, a bit ago was like, first of all, Megazords are kind of a funny thing to test because they only appear at the very end of the game. But that also means we can just kind of simulate, okay, if all the Rangers are recovered, let's assume we're doing a boss fight with all of our resources with a Megazord. Let's see how it plays. So we can actually just test that, whereas some monsters we have to be like, okay, wait, if you fight them first, if you fight them late, how do we balance them for those various stages? Megazords are comparatively easier to test, and I will say, I think we wanted to we were like super close to, and I guess we decided like let's just get to 50 Megazord cards in the final version of the game, and so we did, and that is one of them. Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of hype around that too. There's a lot of hype about a lot of different things, which is one of the reasons that like I love Power Rangers overall. Like there is really something for everyone. I remember reading about I'm gonna keep talking about Madison Roca especially because she's one of my like top tier favorites. And like just everything about her sings to me specifically, like as a person, as a player, as like an inner child. And I'm like, yeah, of course, there's a Power Ranger that's essentially designed for me. Everybody's got a Power Ranger that they feel like was designed for them.
Yeah. a favorite. It's always nice to, yeah, like, I think that is something that, like, even at the very beginning, like, Saban wanted to make sure, like, Power Rangers has a big inclusivity element, like, it was very funny when they were when I think we've mentioned going to Ranger School, which Saban had, and unfortunately is no longer part of, I think, the Hasbro model, but it's things like, oh, Power Rangers, they do their homework on time, they don't disrespect their elders, they eat healthy, they exercise,
Yeah.
and it's like all these very wholesome, classic Captain Planet esque '90s concepts, which I think was very cute and was very fun to kind of have be core parts of the wait, how do we emphasize that they eat right in this game, like especially given all the smoothies they consume.
I mean, a smoothie is a good way to get yourself a full meal real fast.
That's true.
That's how I get myself to the gym sometimes. Is I'm like the Power Rangers would go to the gym at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say that's how I get myself to the gym. Then I get to have a smoothie because I
I also
absolutely.
do. Yeah, I do get a smoothie after the gym.
Mm-hmm.
Once a week, we get Jamba Juice. The rest of the time, we make them at home
Yeah.
because Jamba Juice is expensive.
Yeah.
But
But yeah, no, I have an absolute like I've gone to the gym, I've earned this. I get a protein
yeah,
shake that's basically, peanut butter and chocolate.
exactly. And the Power Rangers agree.
Mm-hmm.
Um, oh, I've got another one, and I know that people have asked this one a lot. Do you want to talk about how escalation cards work? Because
Ah,
are they new for this, or
they
are
are.
they?
They are. They're a new
Yeah.
thing. So this is something that like the playtesters really wanted for a long time. That I was a little hesitant to add, mostly because I'm still a little gun shy about how the game at launch. A lot of people found the game a little too challenging, which we've done made some efforts to make it a little more approachable without reducing the overall like difficulty ceiling. But as more Rangers have come out, as more team comps are like available, as the players get better at the game, enemies get easier. And some enemies that players really like are players can kind of find them a little too easy, or like want some crazy challenge, or want to really flex their the difficulty of certain things. So escalation cards are basically a way to just turn up that difficulty dial on the game, and just make things just a little bit spicier. And they kind of have a broad like make my monster grow various ways of like, oh, this monster is just scarier. Some escalation cards also apply to foot soldier deployments. They're kind of just a new dial that players can add to kind of make the game a little tougher. Alongside, for example, the arsenal cards, for example, just make the game easier in the way that they provide additional options that the players don't initially have. With the with the escalation cards, that is something to give the enemies a little more bite if you feel that they need them. Certain enemies, I generally don't think that they need the escalation cards, but it's to each their own, and we want to give the players as many tools as possible to give this game, just as much staying power. Like we want to give, like, we don't want to hold anything back. We want to give them everything that we, had left in the tank, and that is one thing that I feel like, for people who really want to pursue mastery, who really want to do weird challenge runs, like, let's go crazy. Let's do some more wacky stuff. You can do more than one escalation card in a fight if you even want. Like, you can
Ooh.
go crazy. I think, not that I would recommend it, but hey, some groups, the playtesting groups are very funny because like many of them have been playing super hardcore, and so they want everything to be harder. And I'm like, okay, but to be clear, some groups this will be their like second or third game, as opposed to their like 100th. And
Yeah.
so making sure that like, I'll occasionally bring some testing stuff to like the local game shop and play a few rounds or teach some people the game, and yeah, that gives a lot of fresh data for that sort of thing. But yeah, that I'm really happy with how the escalation cards came out because we wanted them to feel challenging without feeling oppressive. We learned a lot over the course of the design of the game. I learned a ton as the designer, like about the kind of challenges that are fun as opposed to things that are just hard for the sake of being hard, right? Like,
Right.
earliest example is the original Pudgy Pig just had all these mechanics like, oh hey, these cards, you can't use those cards. Like, these cards are just now like you can't play with the cards in your deck. It's harder because obviously you have fewer resources and your hands are clogged up. But it's not actually more fun or more interesting. It's giving you fewer choices rather than making you make different choices. So,
Mhm.
we iterated away from that sort of design with the new encounter enemies and the new characters. And of course, with the escalation cards, I think most of them, none of them do things that are in that same way, denying the players options. They are just making things tougher, changing the value of certain things, making things, uh, you know, more dynamic. Like I think I want the challenge to be exciting rather than just hard. And in this age of like Souls likes and all these things where people really do pursue mastery and high difficulty and like Hades challenge runs at like 45 heat or whatever, like the reason that is fun is not just because one hit and you explode. It is because like you have to really play better, right? And that is
Mhm.
what I want out of the escalation mechanics. And I'm just talking about, I could just bring up some examples right here, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, so a lot of them change, like there are certain simple ones like, oh, the first and last monster and boss cards in the combat sequence have +1 health, which like even one more health does change a lot of the filtering that occurs. Some of them are like when a monster is defeated, you take a little bit more damage. A lot of them are things that like delay you. So there's a card called Sealed Strength where until the second enemy card in the combat sequence resolves, Rangers can't roll more than 3 dice during a single attack, which reduces the tried and true method of having a big alpha strike at the start of a battle to wipe out a bunch of cards and get a bunch of free turns. This makes that a lot harder. While but you still have those cards that you can play to kind of really hit that right moment of like, okay, if you're just doing good 3 dice attacks or having good flat modifiers, you can kind of get by that sort of thing. And yeah, like I think one of them just lets you. Let's see, one of them is kind of fun. It's Caught Unmorphed, where during the first turn you can't play cards with an energy cost greater than 0. It just locks you out of the card for just one turn. And it kind
Mhm.
of makes that moment of like, oh, hey, when the Rangers try and hand to hand box the monster with their, alarmingly good acrobatic skills, but, they need superpowers sometimes. So, yeah,
Yeah.
those kinds of elements. Um, but yeah, so that's kind of what the escalation cards are all about.
I love the escalation cards. I'm excited about them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going based on popular questions now. I'm telling people to put likes on questions that they also have so that we can get like
Mm-hmm.
the ones that everybody has answered.
Yeah.
So regarding the custom templates, are all card types going to be provided? Arsenal, escalation, mastermind deployment, etc.
I think I want to say yes. I believe the answer to that is yes, although I think the journal will mostly focus on the primary card types that we've seen from the beginning: Rangers, enemies, foot soldier, monster, Zord. Like it'll just have those. I don't think we've got super clear guidelines on how to make the arsenal cards, but I think we will have those templates available
Mhm.
to people. And I mean, since those templates are going to be provided digitally, if not, I've just put our graphic designer on the hook to make those. Um, but I don't think that should be out of the question, and I think we should. I think that would be, we want to do that sort of support. Um, yeah. Let's see.
Ooh, this one's a fun one. Uh, did you ever want to add other IP as Rangers, like the Turtle Rangers or Transformers?
Ooh, yeah. I mean, a lot of that is licensing stuff that's just completely out of my hands, right? Like, I think we all know who we really want in the game, and that's Ivan Ooze. But alas, he is just not, he is not a licensable character. You'll have to do it yourself if you ever want it. But yeah, I think the Turtle Rangers were similar. I think we talked a lot about, if we could get Ninja Turtles, they would be such a good fit for the system, and just things didn't shake out that way. And yeah, there are a few others concepts that we like played around with. I don't know how much we can spoil or like talk about things that never happened, but like we
We
got
can talk about things that never happened.
right,
Yeah.
like we got Santa Claus, right, and that's kind of was an example of that kind of thing we wanted to push for like single figure packs of weird bonuses. I think my favorite one that almost but didn't happen was that I really wanted to see if we could get Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Like,
Just a cool teenager who fights monsters. Like I feel like that would be a
yeah.
very fun crossover. But again, these things, a lot of these are just things like, "Hey Scott, can we do this? Can we do this?" And 90% of the time, it's no, and that's not his fault, not anyone's fault, except for modern uh, licensing and capitalism.
We used to have on the wall at work the quote from Bob's Burgers, which is like, first of all, I love it. Second of all, no. And I think that's what happens a lot of the times when we try and bring up like crossing IPs
Mm-hmm.
and like other like licensable things when we're
Yep.
designing games. It's like,
Even
well, could we?
yeah. I mean, we got GI Joe in, which was a big thing that we were like, oh, let's that one feels like a fun one that we really wanted to do, like Cobra Commander. I think originally the GI Joe one was just going to be Snake Eyes. It was just going to be like a promo of Snake Eyes as like he's kind of the most Power Ranger esque of the characters in GI Joe, and it was just going to be that pack. And then we actually got the go ahead to do the rest of them, and as well as Sergeant Slaughter from wrestling, which was like a very limited licensing window on that one, but we did manage to get that one done.
Yeah, I don't know if those are included in this. I
I'm
wonder
not
if
sure
they.
we even can sell the Sergeant Slaughter one anymore. Like I think that was just for like
I don't know
one
about the
year.
Sergeant Slaughter one, yeah,
Yeah.
but the like the is it the Mission Critical crossover?
Yeah, technically Mission Critical is a different game line, and like it's a different game. It just happens to be largely compatible with Heroes of the Grid, and we made like a module to really show you how to put them together. But yeah, I don't like. Yeah, I'm not sure what the state of that game line is right now myself. Yeah, Power Rangers has always been my main priority and my main, uh, my core uh, part of the contribution to Renegade's stuff. It's really
Yeah.
it eats up the majority of my time. Although I did personally design the GI Joe cast, like all those kits.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know if that is something that like people would want in this Kickstarter. I mean, I would be willing to go to the big wigs, to go to our bosses and be like, "Hey, so
yeah,
everybody loves the GI Joe stuff. We
yeah.
just throw it in there."
I mean, as add-ons or something, right? Like, hey, you
Yeah.
know,
I mean, I don't think we're doing any add-ons for this campaign. Well, we're not doing add-ons for this campaign for a couple of reasons,
mm,
but that just means it gives me the bargaining chip of like, let's just put it into the book, put it into the box, or however we decide to do it.
mm-hmm,
Uh, Again, as long as that's something that people want, which I
yeah,
think I don't know. The chat will tell me if
yeah.
it's something that they want.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like if we can get the GI Joe version of a lot of these templates, that'd probably be cool because that also gives them the GI Joe version of deployment, which is different from the Heroes of the Grid model, and a lot of people prefer it because it gives you a little more freedom to use different foot soldiers with different locations.
Mhm.
Like tying the foot soldiers to location tiles was a fun, flavorful thing for Power Rangers because, like, oh, these foot soldiers are from this series in this location, so we should have them be rooted there, even though they can go to other places. It did mean that we had to package them with location tiles, which was a huge logistical nightmare, and is the main reason why. Aside from the fact that they are also very expensive to produce, foot soldier packs were kind of one of the rarest products, like the hardest products for us to make.
Mhm.
And we made as many as I could. But at the end of the day, you can like use a different kind of back, or like use proxies or what have you for other locations. But yeah, I think hopefully I want to make sure there's some elements of the templating that I want to work with the graphic designer to make sure we have access to. For example, I think the foot soldier templates, while the art box will be blank, I think they should have all of the locations as options to put on the back so that you can use your existing location tiles with them. And that's something I want to make sure that we have. So that's sort of, looking ahead. A lot of it is just like, product design, even, working with
Yeah,
people. Yeah.
every little thing like needs to be designed because it's not just the card, it's, the box, the shipping logistics, the printing
Yep.
of it, the
Yep.
the everything.
How
That
do
was why we
you?
kind of had to go back and forth about the Forever Blue. And like thank goodness we did get that reprint like authorized, and like now everybody gets to pre-order it because a lot of people missed it. But
Mm-hmm.
like it was a little bit of a finagling.
Right. Right. Yeah. Like, and Forever Blue's a fun pack, so I'm glad more people can get it. But yeah, like, it's tough. It's tough, especially, given the current, shipping is so unpredictable, right? Like during the pandemic, we had a huge, uh,
Mhm.
there was a bunch of stuff, and then like when a boat gets stuck in a canal, and like global shipping gets completely messed up for a minute, for a hot minute, like we just a
Yeah.
lot of this is unpredictable.
Oh, will the custom content kit include templates for locations?
I sure. That's I think templates are probably the easiest thing for us to put together. So I think so long as we remember to do them, right? Like we have a
Yeah.
list, and I want to make sure that we have them all. But yeah, ideally, yes. The plan is to have them, and if we don't, just call us out and we'll add them. Like I don't think that should
Yeah,
be.
just ask it in like the Facebook group, and I can bother Jonathan, I can bother other
Hmm.
people.
Yeah, like
Uh
there's yeah, the what can be done, what will be done. I think mostly we're trying, we're trying to do everything that we can. This is one of the biggest, weirdest product releases we've ever done because of this amount of like, hey, we are giving this different kind of player resource that we hadn't before,
mhm.
and so we're doing our best. And a lot of it is not my responsibility necessarily, but thankfully, Renegade is kind enough to listen to a lot of my suggestions and crazy ideas, like giving the players all of the resources to make these, which was something that I wanted to push very hard for. Which we had to negotiate with Hasbro, we had to negotiate with a lot of people for that to have those resources be available on
But
like
it
a
was worth it. I think it's very worth it.
I hope so too. I think so. I hope people really enjoy it, and I'm excited that once we are done with continuing development of the game, I'm actually will be allowed to look at community content, which I have not been allowed to do for myriad legal and professional reasons, because we don't want a situation where it's like, oh, I make a design that looks like something that a community member made, and did I plagiarize? Did I like do like is that okay? Is that what if I design? There's a lot of
Mhm.
convergent evolution. A lot of the systems really want this kind of card mechanic, and you know it's just I don't want to like it's a messy thing, which is why a lot of designers aren't allowed to look at community made content for that reason.
Yeah, I mean, like even to use an example that we have absolutely nothing to do with, I know that a lot of Pokemon have gotten canceled or like changed at the last minute because it turns out that their designs are by via convergent evolution just a little bit too close to something that a community member has designed and done fan art of.
Which is such a shame because like man, there's so many community Pokemon that I think would have made great Pokemon.
Right? My favorite is still the somebody did like a set of Australian Pokemon that I really loved.
Ooh, love that.
Let's see. I'm gonna keep pinging back and forth between like design questions and then just fun questions.
Yeah, yeah.
So, if you could pick any IP to do a full Guardian system game of, what would you choose? Is it
Man.
Power Rangers?
I mean, the answer is Power Rangers. The answer is Power Rangers. I think I pitched a Destiny 2 Guardian system because I
Dang!
was super deep in the sauce during, the final shape and all that. Like, I was super into that. Um, but, I mean, like, video game licenses are a whole nother animal. And, like, they've got, Bungie has their own whole situation. Um, but, yeah, like, I think, oh, man. I mean, there's a lot that would be fun. Like, we all obviously want Ninja Turtles. I think, it definitely, you want it to be an IP with a really cool mook. You want like a foot soldier that is iconic, which is actually one of the main reasons why we never did a Transformers one. Is that like we would need a bunch of minis for a bunch of kind of generic robot, Decepticons, and that's really kind of not what the franchise is about. You want a lot of cool named characters as opposed to fighting a bunch of chaff. I had a couple of designs for like a version of a sort of more streamlined version of the Guardian system, which focused more on elite enemies and like big single opponents. That was kind of like softly thinking about like, okay, how would we do Transformers in this system? But like the scale is different, and the kind of encounters, like, yes, Optimus does beat up a bunch of robots, that are a bunch of generic Decepticons occasionally, but usually we are talking named cool robots that you can get a specific toy of, and
Mhm.
that just kind of wasn't wasn't the right fit for Guardian system. But like, I don't know, like I feel like you could do Mega Man, you could do lots of, a lot of video game IPs actually are good fits just because they have a good generic foot soldier guy that you get to fight a bunch of, and good varieties of those. But yeah, I mean, who like this is kind of the swan song for the Guardian system as it is. Maybe in a few years we'll come back and do some kind of revised stuff. Who knows? But
Mhm.
at the moment, like I could not be happier that I got to go this far with the Power Rangers IP. Right, like it is dream come true. This is absolutely the most successful game line I've ever worked on. And I love the community. I love the game, and like I could not be happier with how much insane product we've made. Like at this point, I feel like I look at people's shells that have got everything, and it's like this is going to collapse into a neutron star. Like you are going.
Mhm.
This is a safety hazard to have this many boxes of cardboard. Like, but it's still makes me happy to look at them. Like I think what was it, a year ago or something, we were like, hey, there are more playable Rangers than there are characters in Marvel versus Capcom 2. Like that's ridiculous, that's impossible. And we're like, we counted them up. Oh, huh, wow. Yeah, but like I think I'd originally planned on the original plan was for me to kind of come off of this project and like design other stuff, which I am excited to get back to doing after this.
Mhm.
And leave the development work of new content packs to someone else. But I think around 2020, I decided like, hey, maybe I could use something a little more reliable, and like it was something very comforting to be able to come back to a system they knew really well. And I just, I really enjoy making Rangers for this game. I really enjoy. I yeah, ended up being the thing. But I am. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't excited to have more time for other design projects and stuff, because like, development and design work are really different fields, and it's been a while since I've gotten to design something brand new.
Which is always really exciting and like very creatively refreshing, I think.
Hmm. Yeah.
Let's see. I also have always wanted a Sailor Moon Guardian system, you
Oh
guys. We're gonna have
God,
to build
Sailor
it together.
Moon. Oh, Sailor Moon would have been so good.
Would have been
Oh.
so good.
Yeah, I think that was one of the earliest pitches, but also like I think yeah, the licensing for Sailor Moon is tricky, I
This
think.
would have been it would have been so much. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, man.
Did you ever consider doing more big bosses like Serpentera or Dark Spectre? We've got a lot of Serpentera talk in the like Facebook group and Kickstarter comments.
Yeah, I mean, the answer is yes. We had a bunch of concepts for them, like, we wanted to do Dark Spectre at some point, but yeah, they didn't sell well. I'm gonna be honest, they didn't sell well. The large figures just kind of didn't. It was a lot of money for one piece of content for like a boss.
Hmm.
And as cool as they were really lovely figures. I think there just kind of wasn't that. They just we had a bunch of extra, and we eventually like had to work through them, but they were a product that required the fewest reprints, and so it just seemed like better bang for our buck to, if we only have this many product releases, right? Is it better to do a large figure, and like try and make it worth your while, or two, three, four, more villains, or like, another ranger pack or whatever. Like it was just, the cost benefit was just never there. The large figure that I probably would have wanted to make most was going to be a Dragon Zord enemy. Like since the Green Ranger was a really bad guy, you fight the Dragon Zord. Like we could
Mhm.
make a cool Dragon Zord figure to go along with the Megazord figure. But at the end of the day, people have a Dragon Zord figure. I think we're gonna try and have the large enemy templates for both the Goldar style, the Mega Goldar style, and the Cyclops style in the template options. I want to say that that is something that is going to be in the pool. And yeah.
I hope so, because one of my favorite things to do with any tabletop game in general is to just grab. I'm a big toy person. Lots of
Mm.
people in the chat know that. Like I've just got these guys behind my camera, etc. Um, and I just grab random toys from around my house, and I'm like, all right, this is your big bad today. Get him.
Yep.
This is my this
It's
is my
fun.
new.
Like, yep. I mean, there's the classic D&D thing of like, and this, bag of Skittles are the goblins, etc. And or like, it turns out the dragon will be represented today by this Godzilla figure,
Yeah.
by this plush tiger. Um, and yeah, I think the old D&D 3.5 miniatures, like I bought that huge Tiamat figure and the
Oh
big
my
red
gosh.
dragon, and when I brought those out, my group went crazy. I think one of them is like, he literally like got up out of his seat and just ran outside and we just would
Oh
hear him
my
screaming into
gosh.
the distance, and then he came back and it was very funny. But yeah, no, those, I feel like there's an amount of drama and like physicality. Like the reason why the Heroes of the Grid figures are so big is to give them a really good board presence, to give them a lot of this like, appeal of handling them and looking at them, and just kind of that physical charm that I love in tabletop. It's one of the that tactility is one of the reasons I love this medium.
Yeah. Let's see. Was there ever talk of a My Little Pony Guardian system game? That
There
that one's from Joseph, but also from me.
there was like, I think there was a broad talk of it, except like I think it ended up with this element of like, okay, we want them to play well together, but there's an amount of like, uh, yes, having Cobra Commander murder Fluttershy might be a little bit the wrong vibe.
It's a little much.
Just a touch. Not murder, like obviously defeat and send to the command center, whatever. Like, having like, oh, hey, you know, uh, this monster. We have multiple characters in Heroes of the Grid who eat people, and there's just a bit of a clash of vibe there. That, I mean, honestly, like, given that, like, what are them fighting herds and
Yeah.
My Little Scythe, like, I think the pony fans could handle it. The question is, would the brand appreciate it?
No, I don't think they would. I don't think they would have let us.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Alas, and
Again,
like,
we'll just do it ourselves.
yeah, what is a My Little Pony foot soldier? Maybe I'm sure somewhere in the lore there's a good
Well,
like.
I was about to say, well, we've got Chrysalis's Queen Chrysalis has her foot soldiers that are just kind of like generic changelings,
Mm-hmm.
so that could work. But again, that's not even what this stream is about. This stream is about Power Rangers.
Yep. Yep.
Uh, favorite decks to play, including two-player mode. Two
Let's
decks
see.
together.
For me, I mean, in two-player mode, I tend to like to mix cards that, like, there are a couple of OP combos, but also I like to do them very thematically, right? Like I like to do, oh hey, this is Jason as the both the Gold and Red Ranger, or Notably, the new Ninja Adam Park is specifically designed to interact well with. He uses the same hit token mechanic that
Mhm.
sorry, Zeo Green Adam Park does. And so by having them both interact with hit tokens in the same way, their cards are cross compatible and they do cool stuff together. And so yeah, that is I think my favorite that I made for me. Like Ninja Adam is for me. Like this is my I got to put my thumb on the scale once when it came to like having something really specific, and that was the call I made. And yeah, I think the Ninja Adam Park kit. I think I've had in development for like God, I want to say 2 years. Like
Wow.
yeah, it kept getting pushed back of like various expansions. Like, is this really a priority? I mean, he's another Mighty Morphin character. Like, is it weird? Is it necessary? And then finally, I'm like, can we please just for this last one get my boy in there? Oh, he's a frog. So yeah,
He's a frog.
he's a frog. You know, like God, that movie really imprinted in
Everybody's
me.
going crazy. What's his sword?
I think he is intended to just use the frog sword from the original from when we released all the ninja swords. We didn't make a
Mhm.
new special sword for him. Although I think we are adding like I think we finally have Tor as a sword, which like took forever. I think Tor is the piece of content that got kicked back the most out of every thing in the game. I think Tor was designed like around the same time as we did Titanus, and it just kept
Mhm.
getting knocked to later expansions. So yeah, I think you'll have to pick whatever pick a Zord for him, but like he's designed the Ninja Frog Zord as his Zord. Although awkwardly, the Ninja Frog Zord is listed for the Mighty Morphin Black Ranger, which Ninja Adam Park is not listed as because he's like the Black Ninja Ranger or something officially. They work together, just like let it be. We could put an errata, I guess, but like come on. Yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of the playtesters use any Zord they want sometime in some of the tests of like just to experiment and to try out different combos. Yeah. Yeah, like I love the custom stuff. Like I really want to encourage, and that was actually the tricky thing. Like I wanted at the core game, I wanted to encourage players to do mix and match stuff. I think my favorite scenario we ever made is the one that kind of turns Heroes of the Grid into a bit of a deck builder by having like a kind of a market of Ranger cards that you can swap in. But that was a lot harder to do when everyone gives every Ranger deck a unique set of backs, and they give them different sleeved backs of like their specific ranger color, which is obviously cool and is the thing you want to do, and it makes sorting them a lot easier. So like yeah, okay, fine, but I think custom the yeah, I think being able to mix and match ranger decks is a fun part of the game, and that master morpher mode is the thing, is all rooted in that sort of thing. But yeah, so like I use clear sleeves. Just saying. Uh-huh. I think there were a couple. Yeah, I think we had a few versions of certain characters. I think we had like I think there was uh another version of Bulk and Skull that were like a little more like even wackier, but were kind of more in their traditional outfits. I think there was like oh god, most of the wacky scientist characters. I think that design space isn't super broad because they don't move with the players. They're kind of available in every fight, so they have to have kind of an upper ceiling on the kind of contribution they can have. There was just they were a little tougher to design for. So like once we did Alpha 5 and Dr. K, I kind of like it was like, okay, I think we're pretty good. I think we're solid on that archetype. I think God, let's see, what I had a document of a couple of the others that we could have done. Ooh, uh-oh. Uh-oh. Let's see. OBS. let's see. So I can hear you, but OBS is showing that you're not coming through. So yeah, whatever you were saying right there did not come through. Hang on, let me try and application audio capture Discord restart capture. Okay, say something.
I will keep
Okay,
talking about
I think
Zordon.
you should
Yeah.
be back. Yeah.
Okay. Am I back, chat? Let us know. I stream like on my own too, so I'm so used to addressing things to chat.
Yeah. I have no idea when that audio cut out either, so I may have just been talking to myself for a while.
I don't think it was too long ago. Probably when I asked that last question. All good. Let's see. Yeah, if you guys can hear me, please let me know. Okay, yes, sound is back. So yes, to say what I was saying, because it's not gonna come through in the VOD, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Zordon's dome is removable. You can paint his little head, and then you can put the
Mm-hmm.
dome back on.
That piece of technology was like really hard fought to like get something to work with that. I think we originally wanted to do it for oh God, I'm spacing on his name. The red guy from SPD. Uh
Oh,
uh yeah, the Broodwing. Yeah. Yeah, we
you
had
guys know.
originally Broodwing, who has like a funny helmet that is also kind of a dome thing, and I think we were that was one of the options we were toying with, and we couldn't make it work then. And then finally, when we were doing this, we kind of went to the factory and kind of really nailed down, and it's like, okay. I think part of it is that Broodwing has like a metal lid on the top of his dome that like made it a little trickier or something, or
Mhm.
like the cylinder was weird, but like we really went to the factory and like had a lot of conversations about like how can we design this, how can we make the sculpt work, and eventually we got it in, and I'm super happy that we were able to get the Zordon's funny dome helmet. Um, yeah.
Oh, here's a good one. Will the design notes have anything on your intended theme for unfinished teams, i.e., Lightspeed?
Ooh. I think I do bring them up maybe briefly. I'm not actually sure if if that survived the edit of those, because like I don't know how necessary that would have been to the writing. But I had a couple of concepts. I think Lightspeed Rescue in particular was going to interact really heavily with the panic mechanic and having locations be panicked or not, and like kind of uh, being very crowd control heavy, being very much about dealing with disasters. Like honestly, I'm gonna be honest. I find the Lightspeed Rescue suits one of my least favorite suits in all of Power Rangers. But the Lightspeed Rescue concept and like season is one of my favorites. I love the idea of them being like rapid response, like disaster. I think that disaster relief characters. Like I think that's such a
Mhm.
good a slam dunk theme for Power Rangers. I kind of wish they do it more. Like they keep doing cars, but uh, no, I love all car seasons. Let's be clear, I love the car seasons, but
Okay.
Lightspeed Rescue was going to have a lot more of that kind of crowd control element, a lot of and interacting with the panic mechanic, which is a little bit variable, like and would have been a little tricky to balance, especially with certain enemies that don't cause a lot of panic, like elite foot soldiers don't panic locations as often as standard foot soldiers. And so, would that make Lightspeed Rescue weaker? Do we want like, is that good? Is that bad? Like, what is the, what are the thresholds we want to play around with for that? And we never ended up becoming one of the ones on the docket that like became a primary thing. And like often when we ask Hasbro, when we ask like when we check in and like, okay, what season to work on, or what you know kind of mechanics we want to explore next, I think unfortunately Lightspeed Rescue was it was often the bridesmaid, never the bride, when it came to getting full dev treatment, unfortunately. Yeah. But yeah, like, oh man, too many seasons. Listen, I had no illusions about ever finishing the whole every single Power Ranger series ever. I think our original plan, the original thing Scott told me was that the game live would last like maybe 2 years, and that would and then that would be it. But so like heck, when we did that first Kickstarter, we weren't even sure if we were going to get another expansion because that was during the Hasbro licensing changeover.
Mhm.
And so like we that's why that first Kickstarter was so crazy, was that we were like, oh hey, here is a year's worth of content all at once because we don't know if we're going to get a second bite of this apple. And then we did, and Scott was like, all right, design more, and I was like, God damn it. I just used up a bunch of ideas. Okay. And then yeah, I had to kind of hit Nova Steel Grindstone and cook a bunch more stuff.
Somebody says, was Overdrive even invited to the wedding?
Oh, Overdrive. I think Overdrive is a somewhat unfairly maligned season. It has some fair criticisms to it, but yeah, no, I think Overdrive was probably the most often scored pretty low on what people like, which is interesting. Like if you compare it to like RPM, which while it also has a fair share of haters, it's very polarizing. There are some people for whom RPM is the Power Ranger series that they love the most, and it's the most interesting and the most different. And like having that kind of dedication is more of what pushes people to be like, ah, yeah, that's the one that I want to go for. Like, I think as the expansions got more into later seasons or into seasons that were kind of in that middle range of like not quite the original Power Rangers boom and not quite the new cool stuff, it was tough to make sure that the people like the community of people who watched that season when they were kids or like what really enjoyed that season really wanted it and to play Heroes of the Grid, and like it was tough to motivate to make that gamble even, right? Like
Mhm.
a big thing with these products is that like when one of these does not do well, it's a pretty big loss. It is like a hard hit to the game line. And so like we got to that is part of why a lot of the ally packs and stuff were this nice mix, because we wanted to appeal to as many people as possible. Like at least one of these guys is going to be your guy, right? Like at least one of these Rangers is going to be something that you're really excited to get, and then you get to try the others and be excited about their kits and mechanics. But from a marketing standpoint, like it's tough. It was tough to do full teams because they had kind of the most limited fan bases, right? Like
Mhm.
it's not like Star Trek or like Star Wars or whatever, where it's like you have this one main central series that everyone in the community can kind of pretty much know they watch. Like Star Trek has a few, but like with Power Rangers, like a lot of the community is like, hey, this is the one I watched when I was 9 years old. Love this one. When are you making that one? I don't care about the others. Like which was really eye opening when we went to our Power Morphicon for the first time, and like we were kind of noting down when people would ask for a given series, and it was just across the board this huge, wide, shallow net of like, when are you doing Ninja Storm? When are you doing Dino Thunder? When are you doing Time Force? Like it was just kind of this like, only a few of them got multiple people excited, whereas like it was just it was tough. I don't know if there and I don't know if there's a true right answer of the right way to have rolled out the teams.
I,
Yeah.
I I don't think so, because like, and it's one of the like you were talking about, it's a pro and con of Power Rangers, where there's so much, there is something for everybody, but because there's something for everybody, there's not like one thing everybody is rallying around. Because even when, like, sometimes we'll drop polls in this Facebook group, and I'll be like, so who's like, what's your favorite, not even just what's your favorite color of Ranger? And it's a lot of like a fair, almost an even distribution, except
Mm-hmm.
for red. People love red.
People do love
I've never
red.
been a Red Ranger girl.
I mean, when I was a kid, like the cool kid got to be the Red Ranger. Uh, that was always like whoever the leader of our tiny group of children was. Uh, Not me, I'll tell you that. But like, listen, when the Black Ranger became a cool Asian guy, tiny me was so hype. Could not have been more
Hell yeah,
hype.
yeah.
Like, yeah. Uh,
That's why I love Madison and Vita.
mhm. Like, and it's funny when you get that kind of like formative thing of like I think like my affection for axes in games is probably rooted in liking Zack in Power Rangers. You know, it's like, oh yeah, a battle axe is cool. Also, when it turns into a gun, but you know, I'll take a battle axe in D&D. I'll like, you know, that is, I love axes. I love, yeah, it's just that sort of thing. Really, it digs deep.
Let's
Yeah,
see. Let's grab another question. I'll let you keep doing
yeah,
art for a little bit
yeah.
while
I'm
I
just, you know,
scroll
at this
through
point,
them.
like, you know, I'm doing doodle sketches, trying to get
They're fun.
them
I like
down.
them.
Yeah, you know.
I love. I'm gonna keep talking about the Eternal Ranger. I love them.
Hmm.
Uh, like as a non-binary person, I just think that they're neat, and I hope that other people keep moving forward with like anybody can be a ranger. That's
Yeah,
the best part.
you know, it's similar to
Anybody who does
the
their homework.
Spider-Man thing, right? Like there was a
Yeah.
whole thing about how Into the Spider-Verse, one of the core themes was like anyone can be Spider-Man, right? Which is on the playground was so much more true than like Superman or Batman, which had this very discrete face and like idea of like, oh, you know, this is what this character looks like. Whereas like, you know, when you're a kid and you don't really follow the comics, you just see the art and you see the character as an idea. Like you could put on the mask and you look like Spider-Man, right? When you put on the Superman suit, you don't always look like Superman, or like you know, as a kid, you don't quite feel it's not the same thing. Power
All
Rangers,
the Superman costumes are padded, and Spider-Man's aren't.
that's true. Yeah, he gets to be, you know, he gets to, yeah, look like you know he's got a build that's not this giant, enormous man. And similarly, like Power Rangers, you know, you put on that suit, you wear that thin plastic mask with that rubber band that's cutting into the back of your scalp. You know,
Yeah.
little slot for your tongue, like it wasn't what it was for, but I sure cut my mouth on that thing.
That was to put your straw in when you were drinking your chocolate milk.
Clearly, yeah. But yeah, like those, like oh man, yeah, it was really, I think as a series, like it got kind of some flack at the time for being this kind of rainbow coalition of like, oh, the Black Ranger is a black guy and the Yellow Ranger's an Asian girl, and like, you know, but also, hey, one of our like we have a diverse cast already, and it's
Mhm.
you know, it was really galvanizing for me. Like I don't think I think you know it affected me. It really it was cool to see that kind of stuff on screen. You know, I can't say that it wasn't
Yeah,
heartening. And
that's
so yeah,
that's something that we try and strive for. Like
yeah.
as a company, as like Renegade tries to
Mm-hmm.
be like super diverse, and like as game designers and as marginalized folks in our field, like knowing that we are providing like role models. That's the word I was looking for. Uh, like is very cool for people. I have like talked to multiple like younger designers or like people who work in the field or whatever, and they're like, yeah, you know, I saw Jonathan Ying doing this. I saw Chris Chung doing this. I saw uh Jonathan I don't remember his last name right now. I think it's
Yeah.
Jonathan Jones.
Hmm.
But like I've seen these people doing it. And it's like, oh, I can do it too. And I think that has. I'm moving off of Eternal Rangers for a second, but
Mm-hmm.
I think that has really like refreshed the industry and given a lot of people a voice. And I think that it's really really cool that we like have inspired people.
Yeah, it's great. And like you know, as a love letter to the series, I think one of the elements of the Eternal Ranger that play people will see once the cards start coming out, but each of the Eternal Rangers cards are named for Power Rangers the like anniversary events. So like we've
Oh,
got like one of their cards is Dimensions in Danger. One of their cards is Once and Always. Uh, and admittedly, I think we may use Once a Ranger for like a different mechanic name in a different ability name, but we
I
use it
think
again
so.
here.
Yeah.
But you know, and each of them kind of are meant to convey this kind of love letter to the series. Like the character ability of the Eternal Ranger is meant to evoke the it is kind of meant to evoke their role in the story of Heroes of the Grid and in this like broader story of like the game line where the Eternal Ranger's character ability is that once per battle, after any ranger plays an attack or maneuver card, if that card was the last card in their hand, you may immediately play an attack or maneuver card. You sort of can follow up and do your own thing, right? Literally, when another ranger runs out, you pick up the torch and you carry it on and keep going. And it plays really well, and it also kind of encourages players to, kind of really uh, use everything they've got, right? Like you want to kind of build towards that in your gameplay. That kind of Magic the Gathering calls that mechanic hellbent of like having no cards in hand, which a couple of rangers play around with low hand sizes, including Justin and Carlos from In Space way back when. But the Eternal Ranger plays really well with them. But like that kind of mechanic about like similar to how the Solar Ranger played around with being kind of on your last legs, having like just the smallest bit of uh, you know being on the back foot, right? Having zero energy in the energy pool or what have you, like was where they found their strength. Notably, all of the other Solar Rangers, which have we revealed the other Solar Ranger character cards?
Yes, we
Okay,
have.
cool. Yeah, so they all have a similar theming of when you are on the back foot, when something has happened, or when you're in a dire strait, then they come out and do something cool and do their flavor. And God, those character abilities were pretty interesting to try and make different for several of them, especially ones who have very specific interfaces with their card kits, like Heckle or
Mhm.
Tanya. But thank God we have playtesters. Thank God they do so much work.
Thank you, playtesters out there. So I will drop right now, like the info that we are only here for another 20-ish minutes,
Mm.
like on the live stream at least. If you want to jump into the Facebook group and answer questions, you're welcome to. But we're only going to be streaming for another 20 minutes, so I'm going to try and grab a couple of more
Yeah,
like
let's knock
highly
out some
asked
questions.
questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. How does the mastermind player pay for the new scheme cards? Where do they gain the energy, and where does it go?
Ooh, right. Okay. Oh God, this is an example of the thing where how did we decide this? Because we worked out a few different modes, and I'm gonna see if I can look up what the final decision was on it. But the goal of them was that when mastermind cards are just free, which they were originally, you use them whenever you want, and they have to be a kind of a certain amount of value. And not too much, because like if you can play them whenever and you can play as many of them as you want, things get out of hand very quickly, as we've learned from Yu-Gi-Oh, where nothing costs anything unless they specifically say they do, and it's a whole all spell cards are free.
We learn from the mistakes of other games. Yeah.
And Yu-Gi-Oh is built around that, right? But I think
Yeah.
being able to integrate a cost and kind of create a little more nuance in there was a big part of getting that balance there. Okay, let's see. Where is the God? If any of the playtesters are watching, you can message me and tell me what we ended up deciding. Because I think because at one point it was just giving the Rangers energy. At one point it was placing foot soldiers on the foot soldier track. I think at one point it was literally just taking foot soldiers from the location and like actually like sacrificing them for these effects, which was too strong. I
Mhm.
believe, and don't quote me on this, like you can, we'll see in the final reveal, but
We'll see.
I believe it is moving foot soldiers, like adding hit tokens or foot soldiers to the experience track and just kind of giving the Rangers a little more progression towards the Megazord, which like is kind of a risk reward. Like they will eventually have this amount of power, but also you should let them have fun, right? That's kind of the tricky thing where we wanted the mastermind to not just fight the Rangers and give them a challenge, but also like be exciting, right? Be
Yeah.
and I think there are some groups who due to their playstyle, and there are certain ways of playing Heroes of the Grid where you don't get the Megazord. You actually prioritize other things and just keeping panic down, and then you take out the boss. And that is a risk because you're fighting the boss without the Megazord. But come on, get the Megazord. It's fun. So a couple of mechanics are there just to kind of push the players toward getting the Megazord and to kind of get to play with this, cool thing that you put in the deck. And yeah, so I'm pretty sure that it's giving the Rangers experience on the experience track, but I will have to double check with the final official ruling. Because yeah, like again, we play test these, we try and get them as balanced as possible, but also some things are like meant to be harder, so we don't want
Yeah.
that to just be, oh, I never want to use this because I don't want to give the Rangers anything, right? Like, yeah, it's tricky. But it did open up some design space to have mastermind cards that are more powerful, more interesting, more weird.
Always very fun.
Yeah. The
Let me
mastermind
see if I
deck.
can. I'll also start seeing if I can grab any more like last minute questions.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm also like pulling them from like Discord and Kickstarter and a couple of other places. So if I'm asking Jonathan questions that like you don't see, it's
Mm-hmm.
because of that. There has been a lot of talk about the like mission critical crossover scenarios. So I think I am going to bring that forward and just ask if we can just slide those
Awesome.
into the book.
Yeah. Cool.
This live will be posted on YouTube probably today or maybe next week because Renegade is out of office tomorrow and
Mm.
Monday.
Yeah. Make
Uh,
sure to edit out all of my
answering that question in
stutters.
the chat.
Make sure that like that
I don't have
that
time
crazy
for
thing I
that.
spoiled was edited out. Yeah. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously.
All right. Let me find one more good question. Oh, what's Min's ability do? Will I just use Trini's cards? That one has 5 likes.
Yeah, yes, Min uses Trini's cards, or you can use any Mighty Morphin yellow cards. You've got plenty of them, and Forever Yellow. But Min's ability is once per battle, you can discard the top 2 cards of your deck. Then, if there are 2 cards in your discard pile with the same name, add both of those cards to your hand or the top of your deck. So you kind of sacrifice 2, and then you can get a double in hand or a double on top of your deck for defensive purposes. She's pretty flexible. We've played a lot with the Yellow Ranger, kind of doubling mechanics, and like it's tricky to find new ways of using some of these kits. But I think Min plays pretty well. I think it's gives her a different flavor. It kind of leans into tenacity. A lot of the Ranger abilities are kind of leaning more or less into certain cards that in their core kits. But yeah, that's Min's ability. Discard top 2 cards and then pull 2 cards with the same name from your discard pile, top of deck or hand. That basically means you can't do it with your power weapon and you can't do it with the blade blaster. But most of the rest of her kit is there. It is also possible to like get burned a little bit if you use this ability and you don't have a double in your discard pile. So play it smart. I think having that room to play it well or poorly is part of being a game having space for mastery, right? Like if every game played the same, or if you couldn't mess up, then there wouldn't be a game. You
Yeah.
couldn't get better at anything. But yeah, yeah, people just keep asking for spoilers. Clearly,
Yeah, people love spoilers. They want to
yeah.
know what's in the box. I don't even know what's in the box, you guys. That's not true.
Yeah.
Uh, who's more fun to design, characters from the comic or TV show?
Ooh, characters from the comic I can often pull. I have like really good art reference to pull. I think, oh, man, that's really tricky. I think I'm not sure there's a big, a huge delta of difference between the two. I think the TV show can often have a little bit more wacky stuff. I think, you know, like I think for enemies, I think the show tends to have the funnier enemies. Like I'm
Yeah.
sad that we kind of moved away from doing Monster of the Week style bad guys, just by virtue of like if we can only include 3 bad guys, let's include the iconics that appeared in more than 2 episodes. More than one episode. But when I was able to design more of those monsters of the week, they could have much wackier gimmicks and like, Eye Guy and Terror Toad, like, oh, weird mechanics that I got to like be. Those were really fun to figure out. Okay, how do we do like a guy with like mirror powers or whatever, right? How do we do like
Yeah.
what does a fire hydrant monster do? Like, it's those get to be a lot of fun. Whereas like a lot of the generals and stuff are kind of they fall into a little more consistent archetypes. I think the like there's usually femme fatale, sexy lady enemy who's got like a bladed weapon and is kind of sneaky. They have a lot of those, which is part of why I was so charmed by Poisandra being a big, boisterous, more dramatic character.
Hmm.
But like, uh, yeah, or like, oh, here's the big, scary, heavy guy, or here is a guy who's like a ranger but evil, and he's got a sword.
Love
Uh,
it. Here's a guy who's a ranger but evil. It's one of my favorite
oh,
villains.
the best archetype, but there's a lot of them, and having and making them feel different was sometimes a bit of a challenge. But honestly, the what is it? The I think we have shown it. Is he in Eternal Rangers? Where's the but yeah, the evil Dino Fury Blue was really fun because it was like, oh, it's an evil Blue Ranger, and I got to lean into making, okay, how do the Blue Ranger mechanics work when they're bad for you? Which was
Yeah.
fun. So he does like card manipulation stuff in a way that like feels really thematic, and that's really quite fun. So yeah, I don't know if the show or the comic is really different, but I really like when enemies have weirder powers or more interesting core themes. Yeah.
Oh, since you brought up Poisandra, was Sledge in the works? Because it was strange that Poisandra was coming alone.
Yeah, we did have Sledge was in the works and ended up not being. He ended up getting bumped, um, and partly because like I think Sledge wasn't coming together super distinctly mechanically. He was like kind of just another big heavy guy. Uh, but like I think given a little more time, we probably could have made him into something more iconic. But yeah, like I think of them, I think Poisandre was the more fun character, and also, the game has lots of bosses, and I think when we can add a good monster enemy, you fight more monsters generally. Like I think they get more value. So yeah, I was kind of if I had to choose between Sledge and Poisandre, I'm picking Poisandre every day of the week. Like
Yeah.
I love her.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, uh, yeah. Let's see.
Getting a lot of thank yous. We appreciate you guys just as much as you guys appreciate us. Uh, when is the next live stream? We didn't have another one scheduled. This was just kind of a bonus because of all of the questions that people have had and all of the like love that we've been getting. Would you be down to do another one?
Yeah, totally. I don't know if I'll, be doing like another doodle stream, depending on when these need to be done. But yeah, like I'm here for the community. Let me hit me with questions. I love chatting about it, and yeah, these are nice. It is very
Yeah.
cold where I am right now. There's a lot of winter happening, and so I am loving the chance to socialize even remotely.
Yeah, we also got snow last night, and so a lot of our city is shut down.
Yeah.
Um, this one's not technical. Well, this one's kind of Eternal Rangers related in that
Mm.
it's about the compendium. What would be the best way for people to secure your autograph for the compendium once it's delivered?
Ooh, geez. I
Will you be
mean,
going to like Morphicon or anything like that in the future?
so I am actually I attend Power Morphicon fairly often because I have family in Pasadena, and it's like now it's just in Pasadena every year. So like
Uh-huh.
um yeah, I'm often an attendee though. It's not like I have like a booth or anything. I could probably call them and ask for one or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm usually at Gen Con. I you can if we want to like if Renegade wants to organize like a place for signings or stuff, yeah, sure. Otherwise, like I'll try and like be um I'll let the group know in at shows that I go to. I'll do a post like, hey, if anyone wants to do whatever, I'll be at hanging around Renegade or something like
Yeah.
at this or that time. Yeah, I'll try and I want to make time for that. It's always still baffling to me when people are like, oh, can you sign this? I'm like, why? It's
I
such a nice
love having
cover
people
art.
sign stuff.
Why would I
Oh, I don't
ruin it
sign.
with my
I would
scribble?
never have you sign the cover. You sign
Yeah,
the inside cover.
there you go. See, that's the way. That's the way. But yeah, no, I'm very proud of this game, and yeah, if anyone wants my grubby signature on it, happy to provide.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I'm
wonder
usually
if
at
you
Gen
could get like.
Con. I try and go to PAX Unplugged. I try and go to Gen Con, PAX Unplugged. What else? Uh, I've never been to Origins. Sometimes I try
I've
and go to a
also never
BGG
been to
Con.
Origins.
Yeah. But yeah, like I'll see what I can do. But yeah,
Maybe we can get like book plates or something that you could also like sign and send out, maybe.
sure. I could pretend I'm John Green for a hot minute and just like sign.
It's very fun.
Yeah.
I
Or
that's what I
Brandon
do when I'm
Sanderson, I
signing like
guess.
documents.
Hmm.
Have you met your favorite ranger? That's a fun question.
Mm. So I think I got to meet Johnny Young Bosch like a couple years before the game came out, and it was just like the standard like say hello, get a signed photo or whatever. Like it was just I was one of many random fans. Like I wasn't working on the game at the time or anything, so like it was yeah. But yes, I have met Johnny Young Bosch like once, and I it was a very normal fan interaction, but he was very cool. He seemed very tired because they always are, they've been signing for hours and like, yeah. But yeah, like I got to meet a lot of Rangers at Power Morphicon. Generally, I try to when we have a new Ranger figure come out, I bring a copy of either the expansion or at least just the figure and their cards to that Ranger to like give them as a thank you. And so I've had a
Aw,
lot of really wonderful interactions with them. I think we had like a recording of the Power Morphicon like 2 years ago where I was doing that. But yeah, that was it's fun. I've met a bunch of Rangers. I many of them have even played the game. But I mean, I don't expect like it's a big expensive product that you need a bunch of people to sit down and play. So like I don't I don't expect them to have played. But a lot of them are like, yeah, oh yeah, I've signed these cards before, so this is what it's for.
that's really cute.
And the thing is, most of them have never seen the mini. Most of them see the cards because they're easy to sign. But when they see the little miniature of themselves, they get super hyped, and it's always very fun.
Yeah, I would too. Dang.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Uh, I don't think we have any plans for scenarios after Eternal Rangers. But I guess that's more of a you question.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I haven't. I don't think we. Yeah, I do not think we have more scenario plans. As fun as the scenarios were, um, I think that's another thing that I'll need to leave to folks. A lot of my main ideas for scenarios got bursted out in that first season of them when we did that elaborate kind of fake story arc. I did all the writing for those. Like I made up that dumb story and got to write funny quotes. I got to write my own pumpkin wrapper rap for the pumpkin wrapper scenario. Um,
That's so good.
mhm.
And you're gonna perform that now, yes?
Of course not. But yeah, man. Like, and that's why the pumpkin wrapper rap in that scenario is bad. Let's be clear.
Uh, any chance of Eternal Rangers puzzle? We could put in that like people are interested in a puzzle of the. I mean, Dan Moore's art is always so beautiful, and
Hmm.
that's why like a poster is one of the or an art print is one of the
Hmm.
things that we are including.
Yeah.
Scenario for every holiday.
Oh
I mean,
man.
I think a Halloween Power Ranger scenario would be really fun.
Like that was the pumpkin wrapper one. Yeah, we did one.
Yeah.
We did the Halloween one. I think for that one, I even got like a big pumpkin bucket that I put on my head for the when we did a little trailer for it. Um, I don't know where that is in the archives at this point, but yeah. Uh,
I'm sure somebody can go and find it like on the YouTube channel or something.
Yeah, if not for the pandemic, we probably have really made like we were doing like weekly Heroes of the Grid games like on stream leading up to the events of 2020, and that really
Hmm.
just put a nail in that, and we never really quite got back to it even afterwards, which is a shame because a lot of the players moved around. I moved away from San Diego, and yeah, it's unfortunate. But yeah, I
Yeah.
really enjoyed that. Even as badly as I rolled in all of those games.
So people were talking about that when we were asking about like content that people wanted like as bonus for the Eternal Rangers. They were like, "We want to see Jonathan roll really badly again. Can we do
Ah.
that?" And I was like, "Well, he's on the East Coast now, so probably not."
Yeah, it'd be tricky. It'd be tricky. Uh,
Uh, Stephen Van Deventer says, "Did my design scenarios get included in the book for the Kickstarter?"
I think every scenario that got made got put in. Like every all of the ones that are in that we released in the PDS, like we were collecting them all. Um, but yeah, I don't think there's any new one. There might even be a new one. I don't know. If there is, I wasn't one of the I wasn't the designer of that one. Um, but yeah. Oh, God, this game is too big, man.
It's huge. I don't know if you saw our poll in the chat where we asked we had people guess the number of expansions,
Mm-hmm.
and BJG has it listed as 42. Most people answered 44, like just as a guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there was like contention about the actual number being 40, but we've got over like
Yeah.
50 SKUs.
Yeah, I mean the SKUs include things like dice and like other,
Yeah.
yeah, that like I don't know if those count as like an expansion for Heroes of the Grid count. Like, the Megazord figure is just the most expensive token you can possibly buy. Uh, and I love it. Like, but
Yeah.
yeah, it is. I wouldn't call it an expansion, right? Like,
Right.
and so yeah, the SKU numbers are kind of a little tricky on that front, and also like promo packs, right? Like all the the Zord packs and stuff. Do those count? Like,
Mhm.
where's the line on some of these things? Uh, yeah, man.
So we've hit noon for
Mm-hmm.
me.
Yep.
Do you have like anything else that you want to say to everybody before we sign off?
You'd think I'd have prepared something. I really should have. But pretty much just thank you all for being fans of the game, for being with us for so long, and I this has been an honor and a privilege to work on, and yeah, seriously, thank you. This was great, and I hope to, you know, for many more games of this to be played. Yeah, and I guess what's the so that, we've done a few different Ranger themed sign offs. I think the most common one is "May the Power protect you," which I like that one. We
I
can go with
love
that.
May the Power Protect You. I'm gonna mention again that like the Kickstarter is running until the 27th. We've got Renegade Con coming up next Friday, which I don't know if we'll have any Eternal Rangers things, but we will have a lot of like our reveals. We've got Heroescape coming out, like
Hmm.
Heroescape reveals, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. My interview with Chris Chung about My Little Pony Festival of Lanterns is going to be there. That's just my personal plug.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, and I know that everybody wants more Power Rangers, and I'm gonna say it. Just wait.
Got to get one of those in there.
Gotta get one.
Hmm.
We will let everybody know when we've reached the final stretch goal. Yeah, when we post it, we normally say like this is the last
Hmm.
one. So yeah,
Yeah.
thanks everybody so much. May the power protect you,
Yep. May the power protect you.
and have a
Great.
great day.
Right. I'm the one handling
Bye.
OBS, so I'm the one who has to.
Yes, but I can hit end on Facebook.
Oh, cool. Great.